Welcome back, everybody, to the Meet the Bus podcast. I'm your host, Jeffrey Reckes, and this is episode 10. And for today, had to do something special. And with that, we have a very special guest on the show for today. He's done a lot within his own career. He's been director of marketing communications in arena football. He's been a coordinator of media relations and publicity for the Cleveland Browns. He's an associate director of business development and partnership marketing for USA Football, a director of corporate partnerships for the American College of Sports Medicine, and most recently, executive director and CEO of USA Water, Ski, and Wake Sports. Ladies and gentlemen, the new CEO of Drum Corps International, Nathan Boudreaux. Welcome on.
Thanks, Jeffrey. I appreciate that. That intro make me feel really old. I've had a lot of stops along the way.
We had to give you your flowers.
Yeah, but no, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about DCI and my background and whatnot. I'm sure there's a lot of questions out there from the community about who the heck is this guy and what's he doing. So fire away. Yeah, happy to answer anything you got.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we just talked about all of this stuff that you've done within sports. So my first question right off the bat is, do you have any background in band at all?
I don't, which, some people are like, how the hell can this guy lead DCI, the leading marching arts association in the world, when he's never marched himself? It's a fair question. And it's one that the board actually asked me during the interview process. And I was quite frank with them and said, you're not hiring me to march. If you're hiring me to march, you probably got the wrong guy. You're hiring me to help run the business. And that's kind of what I think I bring to the table. So the business acumen and having that outsider perspective in terms of looking at things a different way, could be beneficial. We have an excellent staff here and a lot of folks with uber passion, a lot of former marchers on staff. So that part is covered in terms of having the experience in the marching arts world. And then, hopefully I can bring some different new ideas and put some new spins on things. And really, again, my job is to run the business and to manage the P&L and the balance sheet to make sure that everyone in the activity has a positive experience. And, I think I can do that with the experience that I bring to the table.
Absolutely. That's amazing. That is an amazing answer. And real quick, I just want to cover a little bit about your background in general, just so that the people can get to know you. What inspired you to do so much within sports? Because not only did you jump through so many organizations, but you did so many different jobs within the sports industry. So what inspired you to do all of that?
Yeah, I mean, much like your audience has a passion for the marching arts, I had a passion for sport as a kid. I played sports all through high school and quickly realized that, there wasn't much of a career after high school for me in the sporting world, but I wanted to be around it. So, started off in the PR marketing element with arena football and minor league baseball. And then that led me to the Cleveland Browns, which was a great experience. The NFL is pretty much the pinnacle of sport in the world. And I was one of 96 PR people. Each team had about 3 PR people. So like one of 96 people that did that in the world, which was a cool thing to do. And then realized after that, I really was drawn to the business aspect of sport. So, moved over to sort of marketing and business development. I think what really helped get me to where I am today in terms of being able to sort of run a business is the fact that I have experience in marketing. I have experience in PR and community relations, events, business development, sponsorship. So basically you go around the room here in the office and it's like I've done most of the jobs that most of these people have, with the exception of this activity is super unique in terms of how the events are run and whatnot. But holistically, I think I have a lot of experience in like how all the pieces fit together. And then coming from the water ski world, I had no experience in water skiing either. I used the exact same answer I gave the water ski board that I gave the DCI board when they're like, how can this guy on the street come and run water skiing when you've never water skied? And I told them the exact same thing. You're not hiring me to be a water skier. And if you are, we're in trouble. But I actually did learn to water ski while I was there, and which was a cool experience. But it also gave me I got a chance to really cut my teeth and kind of make mistakes and grow from them and learn, what to do and what not to do, more so what not to do moving forward when leading an organization. So I love the experience. I was super appreciative of their board for kind of taking a chance on me because I had never been, an executive director or a CEO before. So that really, those 5 years really helped prepare me, I think, for this position here. And again, uber excited to be here, really want to get immersed in the activity and really understand the nuts and bolts of how things work and what it's like to be a marcher and what it's like to be a core director and a tour manager and get a sense for myself what the experience is like.
Absolutely.
I can relate to the membership and to the participants. I joke around when I left water skiing, they basically embraced me as one of their own. when I left, I was able to talk the talk, and I can and kind of do the activity. And I was kind of like one of them. And that's kind of how I hope this, journey with DCI will be. Right now they may not know who I am or, what's this guy's background or whatever, but hopefully fast forward 4 or 5 years from now, I'm kind of one of you guys, and I'm kind of embraced into the community, and that's what I'm looking to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I will ask a little bit about the business side of what you've done, but a real quick question, since I'm just a media person right now, I wanted to ask, because this is so interesting, doing media and PR for the Cleveland Browns in the NFL, which is, like, as you said, the pinnacle of sports and entertainment and business and everything. They are the leader in all of that. What's something you learned doing media in the NFL with the Cleveland Browns?
We had to deal with a lot of stuff, a lot of crap, basically. Mm-hmm. When you're an NFL PR person, we talk about crisis PR. You're in crisis PR all the time. We're not talking life and death for the most part. Life and death in the NFL world is a coach getting fired, or the ownership changing, or the quarterback controversy, or someone getting arrested for whatever reason. Those are the controversies and the crises you're dealing with all the time. And then, I mentioned life or death. It wasn't life or death, but even last year with Damar Hamlin for the Buffalo Bills, literally died almost on the field, and they had to revive him. So, it could have been life and death, and kind of dealing with the crisis PR around that. So all those little things, with the exception of the Damar Hamlin incident, actually happened with us in Cleveland. And actually we had a MRSA infection with a player one time who literally had to almost get his arm amputated. They were able to catch it ahead of time, but crazy stuff like that. Just dealing with, crises, that's kind of been the number one lesson learned, I guess. But then also it's just, when I'm dealing with the media, and I tell the players this all the time, you can never go wrong with just being honest. I mean, the no comments aren't going to work. The trying to avoid the media is not going to work. Basically it's, if you messed up, come out, say you messed up, apologize, move on. And just being honest with people. I think, part of what I want to do here, and what I've done everywhere I've been, has been all about full transparency. I've got nothing to hide. I'm an open book, an open door. It's very cliche. My phone number is out there on my business card, my cell phone. It's on the website. I joke around. They call me if you have a question, but in the water ski, they did. People were calling me all the time. So maybe don't call me directly.
Maybe can we get one person to just call me?
It was a bad idea to put my cell phone on there, but you can definitely email me, and I will respond to email. Yeah. I guarantee
Absolutely.
you that. I'm all about, again, transparency, taking care of the membership and the participants. So if someone emails me with something, I will respond. I can guarantee that. It may not be in 5 minutes, but I will get back to you.
Absolutely. So let's get into a little bit about the position. I have a couple questions here, but I guess my first question, we kind of talked about, do you have any connection to band, but do you have any connection to DCI at all?
The honest answer is no. I mean, other than the fact that I live here in Indy, and I live downtown Indianapolis, and every year around the first or second week of August, the city would get engulfed with all these band people.
All the band nerds.
With their, their different jerseys and T-shirts and, everything. I'm like, what is this? Yep. So I was aware of it because I live here in Indy, and it's such a big event here in Indianapolis. So it wasn't like I'd never heard of it or never seen the activity before, but I didn't realize until really researching it, kind of exactly what it was, how intense it was, how many stops you guys make on the tour, what exactly the tour was. I mean, I didn't really realize a lot of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But the funny thing was, too, when I posted on Facebook about the fact that I was taking this position and accepted the job, I got probably 4 or 5 text messages from folks that I may haven't talked to in years that are like, oh my God, I marched in 1995, and my brother marches, and my next door neighbor marches. How cool is that? So there's so many people in my network that I have a connection to, that have a connection to DCI, which I wasn't aware of. Kind of full circle, going back to the media in Cleveland. So the TV sports director at one of the affiliates in Cleveland at the time, so in 2005, is now I think he's the head sports director or the play-by-play guy for the Washington Wizards. And
oh, wow.
And he texted me and was like, oh my God, I marched for the Glassmen in 1998. That's so cool. We got to catch up when you come to town, or when the Wizards come to town. So I'm definitely going to catch up with them.
Yeah.
What I want to do is really have our alumni kind of tell the story about what DCI did for them. That really will help, kind of shape things for people that may not know kind of what DCI is or what it's like to be in drum corps. So when he comes back to town, I think either for NBA All-Star Weekend or when the Pacers play the Wizards again, we're going to get him in the office and get him on camera and
Yeah,
do a little sit down to talk about his experiences
absolutely.
and all that. So yeah, to answer your question, long-winded answer is the fact that I did not have a direct connection, but my network does, which I
Yes.
wasn't aware of until they told me.
Yeah. And this activity seems like such a small world at times. And it's just like, with you take the big landscape of the world and it's like DCI is just this little blip. But then when it's just like that, for example, like where you put this out there and it's like, oh, wait, I did this, or I know somebody that did this. It's just, It's crazy because it's just, you'll never know where you meet people that have done this or just have a connection to the activity. I think that's always something that's super great about it. So with the position, how did this come up for you, this position as a possibility, or just how did this come up?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was sort of random, and this doesn't necessarily happen most of the time in today's world. Usually it's, you're connected through somebody and somebody kind of helps you kind of push you along or puts you on the top of the list. This one was just totally random for me. I really just saw a posting about it. Again, I was familiar with the organization. It wasn't like I'd never heard of it before. And then I started going through the job description and kind of what they were looking for. And, I was checking all the different boxes. Like, well, I've done that and I've done this and I've done that too. So, for me, it was an opportunity to get to a larger organization. So, for reference, at USA Water Ski and Wake Sports, it was a $2 million business and a 7-person staff. Here at Drum Corps, it's like a $12 million business and a 30-person staff. So it's a pretty big jump in terms of oversight of a P&L and a balance sheet and a staff and an operation. So for me, career-wise, it was a great opportunity, one that I'm excited about. Yeah, I want to see where we can go from here.
Absolutely. So with all the sports jobs that you've done in your life, what made DCI, when you came across it on a job board, what made that so appealing to you?
Yeah, I think it's more the business side. So, and I kind of told myself a couple of years ago that I don't necessarily need to work in sport. As much as I really do enjoy sports, it's like, I think what I enjoyed most was the actual business element of it. It just so happened that the business was sport. So what the activity or the sport is doesn't really matter to me, honestly. I mean, obviously I want to have a passion for what we're doing. It matters in a sense, but it's really what gets me excited and what gets me going is the running of the business part. I'm very entrepreneurial to the core. So it's like, I look at this as an opportunity of, okay, here's where we are now. How can I help grow this thing? How can we get more participants? How can we get more sponsorship dollars into the activity? How can we go outside the uniform makers and the instrument makers and those folks and get into categories outside of the marching arts? How can we get into, the T-Mobiles and the Altels and the Fords, and how can we get businesses like that to support the activity? So those are the things that excite me about it. Not to diminish what the activity is, but honestly, for me, it wasn't about, oh my God, I need to work for Drum Corps because I love Drum Corps. It was like, oh my God, this is a great business opportunity in a business that is continuing to grow. And it's in a spot now where, I'd love to be able to inject, some of my own ideas and stuff.
Take the next leap.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That's exciting for me. I'm getting juiced over here just listening to that. That's incredible. So for the people at home who are just, in Facebook chats or, on Twitter, just talking about whatever, trying to find out about the future of the activity, just a little something for them. What is going into your position that people at home might not think about?
It's one that it's rooted in history. I tell you that. And a lot of times the challenging thing is sometimes we can't rely on things that have happened in the past to continue happening in the future. For instance, one of the challenging things that we're facing now is with housing for the corps, all across the country when they're going to these different events. 4 years ago, maybe giving you a look behind the curtain that I don't know if I should or not, but 4 or 5 years ago, our annual budget for housing was like $750,000. Well, this year, that same budget for housing is like $1.5 million. So it's doubled in like 4 years because it's not like these schools and whatnot are just offering up for free the opportunity to come and use their facilities and use their practice fields and their stadiums and whatnot. So in the past, that was kind of a given where you would give them a little donation or something and they were fine with that. Now, some schools are saying, no, you can't do it. Other schools are saying, yeah, you can do it, but it's going to cost you X, Y, and Z. So that budget line item has doubled in 4 years. Now, if that continues to trend in that direction, in 4 years from now, are we going to be able to afford to spend $3 million on housing? Those are the kind of things that you have to kind of look at. We don't anticipate that being the case, but those are the things that the CEO and the staff is responsible for doing. Like how can we look at what we're currently doing in the activity from a dollars and cents standpoint? How can we raise more revenue? How can we reduce expenses and keep things going? And at the end of the day, my sort of, this is what I pitch to the board and this is what I pitch to the staff. Our sort of strategic plan is pretty simple. It's like 3 or 4 things. Grow the membership, whether it be more cores, more participants, whether it be world class, open class, sound sport, whatever, whoever wants to participate, we want to grow all the participants. We want to grow our revenue streams, whether it be through sponsorship or through grants from different foundations and whatnot, or whether it be through fundraising activities from core alumni. And then the final thing is to really ensure that everyone has a positive experience in the activity. So
Absolutely.
Those are the 3 basic things. I mean, it's not brain surgery, but if we do those things, then we'll be in good shape.
Absolutely. You mentioned so many great things here, and it's funny because you were like, I don't know if I've answered the question. You've answered so many questions within that one statement. I was just like, great. But I have something I've asked almost at the end of like the last 3 interviews or so. Is just, what do you think about the state of the activity right now? And the main consensus for most people when I ask them that question is, the fees are getting higher every single year. And the fees are starting to get a little scary getting up there because, I mean, for example, when I started in 2016, I think it was maybe $3,500, $3,600 for tour fees for the summer. My brother, when he started in 2012, less than that. Obviously, with inflation, as the years go on, things have to change because of inflation and all of these different aspects. But as you mentioned so much about the financials, how do you plan to keep the activity financially accessible for kids coming up in the activity today?
Yeah, I think we have to find other revenue streams, like I was mentioning before. One of the cool things about this activity, which was shocking to me, was the number of eyeballs that are on it. Whether it be through flow marching or through just the various social channels that we have at DCI. I mean, the DCI Facebook page has over 500,000 followers. I mean, that's a pretty good number, which I think would be enticing to sponsors outside of the activity. So how can we leverage some of these assets that we have to generate more revenue? Because we have to generate more revenue from the non-traditional sources in order to kind of keep these fees down. Because like you said, everything's going up. I just gave you the example of the housing, basically 100% increase in 4 years.
Yeah.
Same thing with the fuel costs for the cores, driving all around all the country, and the food costs, and everything is going up. So and the revenue is staying the same. So for us, the only way to keep up with those costs is to raise the cost of the tuition. So obviously, we don't want to continue that trend to continue just to raise the cost of the tuition over and over again. But if we can find those alternative revenue sources to sort of help offset some of that, that's what we're sort of tasked with. And it's not an easy task. I'm not saying it's easy to call up Ford or T-Mobile or whomever and say, we got a great opportunity over here. Write us a check.
Yes.
It could be one of those 1 in a million shots, but all it takes is that one to work. So we have our work cut out for us for sure. But being here a week, I would say I think the future is still bright. I mean, a lot of passionate people in the activity. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah.
But I think there could be some tweaks to it over time. That again, there's some traditionalists in everything, in every sport or activity that, this is the way it's always been and this is how it needs to be. Well, take a piece from Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball is probably like the longest sort of traditional.
A lot of traditionalists in that sport.
And in order for them to stay relevant, they've had to make some changes that a lot of the traditionalists don't like designated hitter and pitch clock and things like that to kind of keep the games moving and try to get it more exciting. So they've done these sort of innovations, and those are the types of things that DCI is going to have to do, not necessarily from me or next week, but over time we're going to have to do those things in order to keep things going.
Absolutely. And just for the people at home, like he said earlier, he did just start a week and a half ago. So, Rome wasn't built in one day. This all takes time. So with that being said, what are some everyday goals so far as you've gotten into the office that you're trying to tackle every day?
Yeah, right now it's just basically being a sponge and just sort of immersing myself in everything I can DCI. I mean, right now this weekend here in Indy, there's the Band of America championships going on, so I'm heading over there on Saturday night to check out the high school bands.
Nice.
There are a lot of same folks in the activity on that side are in our activity as well. So it's really, like we talked about before we even got on air, I'm meeting with our staff here at DCI, our folks from marketing, the folks from sponsorship and tickets and housing and accounting, and, really just having one-on-ones with each of them to kind of get to know them, because I just met them a week ago. So I know nothing about their background. I know nothing about what they do on a day-to-day basis. So really getting to know the staff itself, and then really getting to know the cores, the core directors, the tour managers, really understanding, what are their pain points? What are they doing on a daily basis? How can we help? And then once the season starts, not to say that I'm going to go on tour, but I'm going to go to some of the tour stops for sure to get an experience, to see what that's like, to see what the participants are going through, what it's like to do that. So I just want to immerse myself sort of in the activity for the first year or so. I'm not coming here saying we need to change this and do that. And, I'll ask a lot of questions as to why we do that. Why are we doing this? Or why do we do that, to really understand? And then really kind of maybe come up with some ideas on how we can improve and make things better, not necessarily blow things up, basically just improve on what we currently have. So right now it's all about just immersing myself in everything. And, we had to reschedule this thing like 3 times because things keep coming up. And I apologize for that, but it's like, I didn't anticipate this meeting happening, and then all of a sudden I get called into this one. So it's drinking from the fire hose for sure, moving 100 miles an hour. Yeah.
Adapting on the fly. Quick question here, kind of going back into your history a little bit to talk about what's happening now. You've been very successful wherever you've gone. For example, with USA water ski and wake sports, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if I just said that right or wrong, but I mean, you were able to bring so many new outside sponsors to help build that organization up. Something I wanted to ask about was what goes into taking an organization and pushing it to its fullest potential?
Well, that's a good question. You may have even stopped me on that one here. I mean, every organization, every company has valuable assets that they may or may not even realize they have. So it's really identifying what those assets and attributes are, and then basically telling that story. So, sponsorship really is storytelling. And we've got some really cool stories in this activity. The more I learn, the more I'm like, man, this is crazy. Like, this is interesting. It's so off the wall. There's opportunities there that I think if we help tell our story to more people, then it opens the door for more opportunities. And not to say we don't do a good job now, because I think our social media team does an excellent job producing content and kind of telling the stories. But there's so many things out there that there are stories that are sort of untold that we need to sort of tell. And I think if we do a good job of telling those stories, then I think good things will happen. So it's really uncovering the stories too. That's the most challenging part. And coming from a PR background from the very beginning, I mean, that was one of the things I was tasked with too at the NFL, working with these players, is like the goal was always to sort of take the helmet off the player and really tell the story about who this player is. Because they see number 12 running around with a helmet on and they just think he's really good, but they don't know his story. They don't know that, he has a passion for this or that. And, heck, they could even have, NFL players that may have been in a drum corps at one time. I don't know. Those are the things we want to find. We want to find sort of these stories out there that these prominent folks in certain roles, or athletes, or whatever they may be, musicians now, or whatever, educator, whatever they may be, that are like dominating their field. They were drum corps, way back in the day, and tell us about that experience and how it helped shape you and how you got to where you are. And like, those are the stories I want to uncover. So that's kind of cool too, is just finding out the cool stories about how drum corps affected folks. And it's very similar to sport. And I use this during the interview process as well. As I not only do I have a passion for sort of business and running the business, but I have a passion for anything that has a positive impact, especially on a young person. So like sport, always, I mean, everyone says, the things you learn in sport or in these activities are things you're going to take with you for the rest of your life. You have to be a member of a team. You have to be able to work together. You have to be able to avoid conflict. You have to be able to manage adversity. Like, all these things that you learn in sport and the things you learn in an activity like drum corps are things that you're going to take with you for the rest of your life. So I sort of misspoke when you were like, why drum corps? One of the reasons why is because it is so similar to sport, in a sense that you do have a positive impact on young people, and then those young people go on to do really good things later on. So the mission was very important to me in terms of what the organization does and what it's all about. So it had a close connection to sport for me. And that's why I stayed in sport for so long, is because, you see the impact it has on people. And I'm sure that drum corps has that same impact as sport does.
And the way that, and you explained that so perfectly. I tried to do this in the first episode of this podcast because I think that's what drew me to do this podcast was I watch a podcast called The Pivot with Fred Jackson and Ryan Clark, those guys who played in the NFL, and they bring different athletes on to really talk about their story, talk about their time within the league, whatever league they were in, but they just talk about their time within the league, time within their sport, what they learned, how these events impacted them. And I was like, why isn't there something like that for drum corps? Because there were so many people that I know who have all these different stories that are incredible stories. Some of them I've already had on the podcast, which have been amazing, but I know that there's been so many teachers that have taught me and so many other people that I've met that have these incredible stories. And this activity has impacted so many people in such a positive way that's why I wanted to start this thing, just to highlight those positive experiences.
No doubt. And you want to pass that on and pay it forward to the folks that are coming behind you.
Yes.
And that's very similar to sport or even being in like a fraternity or a sorority or something like that in college. It's like you have this affinity with these people. You guys have done the same things together, and that's kind of what drum corps is. Like you're experiencing this one thing with 165 other people that no one else can really do. And you have that bond and connection to them. And you guys go through these experiences together, like I said, dealing with
it's your team.
Yeah, you guys are a team. And one of the things that Dan Atchison said to me, which really stuck, that, he basically said that, drum corps is like the biggest team on campus, which it kind of, I didn't realize that, but it's like 165 people, on a team. It's a pretty big team, having everybody work together and you guys are getting scored and judged on certain things. And if, it's just like football. If the left tackle doesn't block, the quarterback gets sacked. And they can't throw it to the guy who's wide open, and just like in drum corps, you're only as strong as your weakest link kind of thing, so
everyone's got to be locked in for it to be successful. Everyone's got to be bought into the idea for this thing to work as well. Just like in any sport, you have to have, like on a basketball team, the star player has to be bought into the coach's mentality, their style of play for the rest of the team to work out. Like Phil Jackson needed Jordan, and I could go on for days. Belichick needed Brady, all the things so that those guys at the top are bought in. It's the same thing like drum corps. If the kids who are doing it, if they're bought into the message, that's what makes such a successful season to me.
Yeah, no, I guess there are a bunch of similarities between the marching arts and sport. I mean, I think it's probably closer than most people think. The real connection for me was understanding how much athleticism actually goes into being a drum corps. I had no clue. Like until you see I think I was Googling around and found some YouTube video about, I think it was some researcher that had a heart rate monitor.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
And they were like, this particular person is like at a marathon runner's heartbeat going for like 4 minutes during the heat of the
just one production. Like their heart rate is this for just these 4 minutes here. And then it completely changes for the other 3 productions.
So you see the athleticism that it takes, not only the talent to play the music and whatnot, but then also to do all the choreographed movements and things like that. So yeah, that part was an eye opener for me. And I'm learning stuff every day. Like I said, I've been here a little over a week and every day I learn something new.
Absolutely. A couple questions here just to round us out. What excites you about the future of DCI?
Yeah, like I said before, I think it's the opportunities that are out there in terms of how we can generate additional sources of revenue that we can then reinvest back into the activity, to the course. At the end of the day, we want to make it more accessible for everybody. No one wants to pay $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for an activity over the summer. Like, how can we help offset some of those costs? And the only way to do that is to bring in more revenue, get more eyeballs on the sport. I say sport activity, and those are synonymous with me now. If I say sport, it's a misspeak, but it's sport activity. It's all kind of one and the same. But how do we get more eyeballs on it? There are so many opportunities. One thing I was working with at water ski was creating a streaming channel for water ski and other sort of extreme sports. There are some challenges with us because with licensing issues and whatnot, but there's so many opportunities to get more eyeballs on it. I know back in the day it was on network television at one point. Yeah. So how do we get it back on some sort of medium to where more people can see it?
Yes.
They're one and the same to kind of help drive more revenue. The more eyeballs that are looking at it, the more valuable you become. Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot of challenges out there, and that's kind of what excites me for the future, is just trying to tackle these things and coming up with a better way than we currently have, and without detrimenting the experience of the participant. I keep saying that, but at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about.
Absolutely.
We want to make sure everyone that does this activity has a positive experience doing it. That same person that went through drum corps who had a great experience, fast forward 30 years when they have disposable income, they may be like, I'm going to donate back to that activity because it was so good to me. Whereas if someone has an awful experience, you've lost them forever. So we want to make sure everybody has a great experience.
Absolutely. So we're talking a lot of big picture in this interview. It's been great. It's been incredible. But something I just want to focus in on. My last question here. What does a successful 2024 DCI season look like for you?
Well, nothing goes wrong, which I'm sure is I can't control that. But no, we want to do everything we can. Again, I sound like a broken record here, to make sure that everybody has a positive experience. So our housing team that is working on getting quality housing for the Corps, our event team that's putting on these particular events in these certain markets. We want to make sure we have a first-class event, a first-class experience for everybody. And then at the same time, if we can find some dollars along the way and some additional revenue, that would be great.
Absolutely.
But, at the end of the day, what does success look like? It looks like at the end of the year, when we do our post surveys to all the participants, they come back with flying colors and say, this was the greatest experience of my life. I can't believe, it ended. How we're going to judge ourselves on things like that. And
Absolutely.
I'll kind of give you an example of similar to when I was at USA Football. We use the analogy all the time. Like, how do you judge a successful youth football coach? Like someone that's coaching a 10-year-old. Because a lot of times these volunteer coaches want to go 10-0 and they won every game by 40 points. And they're like, I had a great season. I went 10-0. But we'd ask them, if you went 10-0, judge yourself on how many of those kids came back the next year to play. If half of your kids didn't come back, something happened.
Yeah.
Whereas a team that went 0-10, but every single kid came back to play, that coach deserves something because they didn't win a game, but he made sure
the kids had a good time.
Yes, and they came back. And that's kind of the same philosophy here. We want to make sure that everybody has a great experience so that they can go back and tell their friends that you guys have to do this.
Yep.
And then, that's how the activity is going to continue to flourish. As long as everyone's having a great time doing it, then we're doing our job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that is where we're going to wrap up for today. This was a quick one, but I know you're a busy guy, so we're going to keep you moving here. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know we rescheduled a couple times because you're busy over there. I'm busy. Life happens. But I'm so glad that we got the opportunity to sit down and have this conversation, kind of introduce you to the community as well. This was incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really do. I really appreciate you taking the time.
No problem. Anybody out there that sees me on the road or whatever, feel free to come up. I won't bite, I promise. But looking to meet as many people as I can. So thanks, Jeffrey, for having me on the podcast.
Absolutely. And with that, this has been episode 10 of the Meet the Bus podcast, and we will see you next week.